On June 14th, 2020, I gave my life to Christ. After a lifetime of fighting it, of hearing his voice but ignoring it, on this day, he was calling me too loudly, too clearly for me to ignore it. So I grew up a confused child because it seemed to me that I was being raised to play church, being raised to play characters that just so happened to be church-going people. But it seemed to me that for the most part, this was a facade. But even as a little boy, something in me recognized that what I yearned for wasn't to play church. I yearned to live church. I yearned for real relationship, and not this thing that was being presented to be it, but through my eyes at such a young age was nothing more of a mockery of the real thing. It seemed like as a child I was asked, if not forced, to live my entire life playing roles, playing church, to which I wholeheartedly wanted no part of. I wanted the real deal or nothing at all. So basically, I was a pretty stubborn 4-year-old. Unbeknownst to me at the time, this yearning to live real church, this yearning for relationship was something so deeply embedded in me that at the sweet tender age of about 4 years old, I would string together enough words to convey to my parents and to the adults around me, and honestly to anybody who would listen, that I wanted to die young. What I was trying to get across with these words was that I would rather die young than live my entire life as an actor, playing these roles. The role of the preacher's son, playing the role of a Christian. I yearned not for a lifetime of perfecting the craft of acting. I yearned for a lifetime of perfecting life itself, in all its beauty, messiness, and splendor. However, as a 4-year-old, this seemed too great a task. It seemed out of reach. Wanting so badly to fulfill this yearning, but ultimately being ill-equipped to accomplish this task. But as the saying goes, where there's a will, there's a way, which led me to the conclusion and the realization that all I had to do was strictly bow out gracefully from this thing we call life and die young. Because at least that way, I knew I would be guaranteed to be sent back to my Creator. My Creator who was the epitome of that which I yearned for, relationship. And as if it were a movie, just like Mission Impossible, for this melanated 4-year-old who, for the mission, to me at 4 years old, the mission was possible. I mean, it was the perfect plan. Where could I go wrong? But as far as I know, I'm clearly not 4 years old anymore. So clearly the mission, it wasn't as possible as I thought. I would come to realize many years later the truth in the popular saying, man plans and God laughs. And looking back, I think I gave God a good laugh that day. A good, hearty laugh. So here I was thinking I was a 4-year-old melanated Tom Cruise who had just given them the source material for an Oscar-winning film. And all the time, God was laughing. A good, hearty laugh. Instead, God tells me that the new plan is for me to live on. And reluctantly and begrudgingly, as a 4-year-old, I continued to live on. I would spend the rest of my life in every waking moment searching for that which I yearned for so deeply. And after searching for 25 years on my own, of my own accord, of my own strength, of my own volition, I was tired, numb, overall I was exhausted. It was at that moment when I had just about reached my breaking point that God reveals himself in a great way, once again, as he had done many times in the past, presenting me with the opportunity for a shift. And in that moment, I was reminded by a quote by a man by the name of Eric Thomas, whose own testimony gave me strength in my darkest days. The quote says, "You have to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity." You have to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity. And inherently and intrinsically, I knew that I was indeed being presented an opportunity of a lifetime. The question was I going to take advantage of the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of the opportunity? And in many ways, him presenting those opportunities to me over and over again was nothing but a keen example of his never-ending love, commitment, and consistency. Ironically, these are qualities I've always wanted to emulate, but can never quite fully grasp. But in this moment, in this time, although the opportunity had been presented to me time and time again, as people from my generation would say, this time it just hit different. This time, I was more keen my eyes didn't open, like there were signs that allowed me to understand that this opportunity may not be presented again. And it wouldn't be presented again, not because God wouldn't allow the opportunity to be presented again, but because, like I said, I was exhausted. I had already reached my breaking point. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like the name of the final tour by Michael Jackson that never saw the light of day, this is it. I had reached the climax of the chapter of my life that took 25 years to get through. While I was still sick and tired of being sick and tired and exhausted, I'd be lying if I said that in my heart of hearts, what I yearned for wasn't what I yearned for since I was a little boy. It was at this moment that the spirit of conviction took over me. And I realized that I had not come this far to only come this far. In that moment, another quote by Eric Thomas, a man of God, whose words had stuck to my ribs and had begun to furiously ring and echo throughout my entire body, as if to fight to protect the final embers of the flame of that which I yearned for so deeply, from being extinguished forever. Eric Thomas said, "Pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, an hour, a day, or even a year, but eventually it will subside, and something new will take its place. If I quit, however, that pain will last forever." It was in this moment of reflection that I realized that I had fought too long and I had fought too hard, and that if I was going to quit, the devil should have gotten me back in high school, when for a time I was suicidal. But when that darkness was telling me to quit, I had to confront it. I had to look it in its eyes and tell it I wasn't going nowhere, that I would break you before you break me, that I would outlast you. So I was ready to make the shift. I was ignorant to the fact that I had been through so much hell that to quit now, it would be childish. That if I was going to quit, I should have quit all those many years ago when I wanted to kill myself. I should have quit all those many years ago when I was a little 4-year-old boy, wanting nothing more than to bow out from this thing we call life. But I can't quit now. Not when I'm in the fourth quarter with everything on the line. I realized at this time, to get to a certain level of success, it's not about skill, it's about stamina, it's about wherewithal, it's about how long can you outlast this. Realizing that sometimes in life, to get to the next level, it's simply about how long can you outlast that pain. So with all that, the choice was simple. I would take God up on his offer to allow him to make the shift in my life. A shift in which my brain couldn't even fully comprehend at the moment. But in return, what he asked of me was to let go of the reins in which I had been controlling my own life, and to give him full control of the ship that was my life. To submit onto him and to give him full dominion over me, and to allow his will to become my will. So when the opportunity presented itself at church, I was chomping at the bit, like, yes, I submit. I give it all to you, O Lord. I give you my life to do with as you see fit. So here I stand at the beginning of a new chapter, or maybe at the beginning of a new book entirely. As you would expect, it's exciting and frightening all at the same time. But I'm at peace, knowing that in my heart of hearts, he's in control, which ultimately brings me nothing but joy at the prospect of what's to come. I was blessed with a mentor in my youth who was more of a big brother figure to me. I looked up to him. His life was an example I could follow. He passed away in 2015 of sickle cell anemia. He struggled with the disease on and off leading up to his passing, but he wasn't his disease. He was a spoken word poet, and he was a Sunday school teacher. There's one line of his poetry that always stuck to me. One line that I always viewed to be his last message from mentor to pupil. Words that stick with me every day, so now I pass on those words to you. He said, in his crisis, he learned who Christ is. In his crisis, he learned who Christ is. In his pain, in his suffering, in his crisis, he learned who Christ is. To make it simple, God was on one end, humanity was on the other end, and the chasm in between was just too big of a bridge. So because he loves us so much, he's like, I can't leave you on the other side. So how can I bridge this gap? So he took himself, and that's Jesus, to be that bridge, to connect us. And that's all that really is. So if I'm asking anything of you, I'm daring you to just take that first step on that bridge that is Jesus Christ. Just take that first step. Come as you are, truly come as you are. and dare to try Jesus.